Welcome to County Fair on Waycross Community Media. I'm Government Programming Coordinator Dana Gagnon, and there is a primary election going on right now in Ohio. Early voting has already started, but the primary is May 3rd, so that's what we're going to talk about today. We have here in our studio the director of the Hamilton County Board of Elections, Sherry Poland. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk about all things elections today, right?
Yes, my favorite topic.
Excellent. Well, that's good news because you're the director of the Hamilton County Board of Elections, so that's good news. The first thing I want to talk about is that this is a primary election, and that's different from a lot of what people focus on when they practice elections in school and things like that. So I want to talk about what is a primary election? How is that different?
Yes, well, a primary election is where the political parties nominate the candidates to appear on the November general election ballot. And in Hamilton County, and actually in the state of Ohio, there are currently two political parties that are recognized. So we have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party holding primaries this May.
That's important to note because in some states there's an independent party, which is neither of them, but we don't have that. So if you are not affiliating with either of those parties, you don't have to pick someone to go forward in November, so you won't have a ballot.
That's correct. Now, there are a few communities in Hamilton County that have a question or issue on the ballot. It might be a tax levy, but there's just a few communities that have a question or issue. And those voters, if they do not wish to participate in one of the party primaries, they can ask for an issues-only ballot.
Okay, so I'm just going to summarize to make sure that we've covered. If your precinct happens to be in an area where there's a levy, might be a school, might be something else, or some kind of issue, any kind of issue on your ballot, that issue will either be on your Democrat ballot, where you're picking your primary people, but you can also do the issue.
Correct.
Or it will be on your Republican ballot, where you're picking your primary people to go forth in November, but you can also vote for the issue. But if you don't want to do either of those primary ballots, there's a there's an issues-only ballot. You could go in and vote.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. I know that just restates it, but I just like to make it really clear because there's a couple different kinds of ballots, and just to make sure people know that it's accessible for everyone. If there's an issue, doesn't matter if you care about the primary or not, go in there and look and see what that issue is.
Right, absolutely. And I do want to note to voters, if they want to know if they have a question or issue in their community, they can go onto our website and click the Find My Sample Ballot button, and it'll bring up the different ballot options for them in the primary and a PDF of exactly what their ballot will look like when they go to vote. And if they don't have access to the internet, they can give the Board of Elections a call, and we'll let them know if what type of ballots options they have.
Excellent. That was actually the next thing I was going to say, is that so often we do not know who the names are going to be, or we don't know if when folks advertise about an issue, sometimes they just target a whole area and they don't worry about if they hit the right precincts. So
right.
Sometimes we think we're going to get to vote on that levy or that levy, but we don't live in the area that would be taxed by that levy, so we don't get to pick if that levy passes or not.
That's absolutely correct.
It's fair, but sometimes we don't know what's coming. So I frequently go to the Hamilton County Board of Elections site. I always tell people, don't get your information about what's happening at elections by posts that get shared from random sites on Facebook. Those are not coming from your local source. You can go right to the source. The Hamilton County Board of Elections has easy click-through ways to put in your address and find out exactly what your ballot is. I love doing that because I can look up everybody online ahead of time, make myself a cheat sheet, and then go in and know what I want to do.
Absolutely. We so highly encourage that. Be an informed voter. You can take the time, see what's going to be on your ballot, and then do your own research about those candidates or about the issue.
And of course, we try to help you at Waycross with local races. We've talked about this earlier. Local races tend to not be talked about quite so much on commercial stations or on large websites and different sources. But that's what access stations are for. So if you're watching this on Waycross, you know that Waycross is going to try to connect to all the people that you'll be looking up to have some programs to help you understand that. But you have the whole world of the internet at your fingertips too. So there's just, you can go to each candidate's own websites and see what they say they stand for, and
Sure.
so helpful. The same thing goes for issues, levies, and all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, there's something different about this primary versus all other primaries that we have seen. What's different this time?
Yes. Well, every 10 years, the state is required to redistrict. And what that means is they will redraw the district lines for U.S. Congress, as well as for the Ohio Senate and Ohio House of Representatives. And they do that after the census, after each census that's taken every 10 years. Now, there's been some litigation regarding the redistricting in Ohio. So normally, the state Senate and state House candidates candidates would appear on the May 3rd ballot. That has been delayed. Those contests will not appear on the May 3rd ballot, but the U.S. congressional districts will. I'd like to talk a little bit more about what else is going to be on the ballot. In addition to the U.S. congressional contest, we're electing or nominating in this primary the candidates for state executive offices. So that's the governor, the secretary of state, the treasurer, the auditor. So the political parties are nominating their candidates right now, and the winner of this primary will then appear on the general election with that party affiliation next to their name. We also have local contests. So, we are locally nominating someone for commissioner in each political party, as well as auditor. And then we have a number of judicial races. So there is lots for voters to vote on, if they want to participate in a party primary. As far as those state House and state Senate contests, we do not yet know when that primary will be. Okay. It's working its way through the state court as well as through the federal courts. It has to happen. It will happen sometime before the November election. And right now we're just waiting for that to play out and for an election date for that primary to be held.
So you're going to have to mobilize everything for a second primary once that goes through.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. It's going to be challenging, but I know election officials across the state, in addition to being the director of the Hamilton County Board of Elections, I'm also the vice president of the Ohio Association of Election Officials. Okay. And so I know I'm in constant contact with my counterparts in the other 87 counties in Ohio, and they're all working very hard and making a lot of contingency plans to make sure we're ready whenever that election date is set.
So I want to take 1 minute to kind of summarize that. For this primary, if you care what names you're going to be voting for in November, this May 3rd one is when you go, when you're thinking about the races like governor, but also U.S. Congress, and more local things like Hamilton County Commissioners. If you want to see a particular name to vote for in November, you have to get it through the primary first. And I think that's something that we forget. We start seeing people, we start seeing names about now, and we think, oh, yeah. Don't wait till November if there's someone you want to see, because if they don't make it through the primary, you won't see them on the ballot in November.
That's correct. I also wanted to mention that we do have independent candidates in the state of Ohio, and that's just done a little differently. So if a candidate wants to appear on the November election ballot independently of any party, so basically it's their name and there's no party affiliation attached, that there is a mechanism for them to get on the ballot. They have to collect signatures on petitions. They do have to collect more signatures from registered voters than party candidates to appear on the party ballot. And that's because there's no primary. So there's a larger number of people have to nominate them by the petition process. So I just wanted to mention that there could be independent candidates candidates that appear on the November ballot. It's just the mechanism for them to get on the November ballot is not through a primary.
That's a really good point, because I'm really focusing on getting the names through the primary to be on the November ballot. But there will be other names on the November ballot besides these ones.
That's correct.
That's important to know, and I don't want to mislead you, so I'm glad that you said that. And I also want to hit again, we talked about local county commissioners. I like to remind folks that we tend to think about government in terms of what happens up here, because that's what larger stations can talk about a lot, presidential and governors and things like that. But when citizens and residents have concerns about, well, what's going in on that corner, and why are my sidewalks so crummy, or how do I get connected to these sources of aid, kind of things like that, that almost all happens at the local level, whether it's your city council or your trustees, or in this case, your county commissioners. So it's definitely worth, folks sometimes think, well, I don't need to really look at what's on my ballot if it's at those levels. Look at those levels. Those are the levels that affect you the most directly and the most immediately. So a little bit off, but I like to hit that when we're talking about what's on your ballot, because I think we get overwhelmed when we look at some of those other spots. Board of Education is on ballots, not this one, but those are local things that affect your everyday community and life.
Right, absolutely. And there's also judicial contests that appear on the ballot too. You know, judges are elected. This would be, these are all common pleas judges that are on this election, juvenile court, domestic relations, as well as the general division of common pleas. And those are the judges that hear, juvenile cases and, divorce cases that are maybe placing children, in homes that are in difficult situations. They're hearing felony cases, high dollar amount civil cases. So, the judicial races are extremely important as well.
Yeah, we decide a lot on these ballots.
We do.
So the research that we do really is important.
Yes.
But it also means that this really is the epitome of the democratic process and being part of it, that our government, when we are actively involved in this at this level, that means our government becomes something we have actively become part of and created. And that's why I love this process, to getting to talk about this, because I would love to see just more people know about it, know the details. Speaking of being part of this process, and I will say one way I learned a lot about this process is as a poll worker. You were looking at gearing up for this primary and also another primary. So talk about where poll workers come from.
Yes, well, it's just your average registered voter. Any registered voter in Hamilton County is eligible to work the polls on election day, and we need them. Every election cycle is a challenge to recruit poll workers. But in the spring primary, and now whenever the next primary will be, it's a little bit more challenging to recruit poll workers. So we still have a need for the May 3rd election. So like you said, if you're interested in the process, you just want to learn more about it, it's the perfect way to do that. And it's an easy way to serve your community.
I will say, as my own kind of aside on having done that personally, I learned so much about how the election process works. And that was really crucial for me to evaluate the sort of information I would see on social media a lot. I'd think, oh, no, I did the training on that. I know what happens on that. I've been there at the polls doing that. If you are someone that looks at posts and thinks, well, I want to be someone that helps make this better, that's how you do it. You can become part of that process and learn what the state regulations are and be part of making sure everyone has access. That was my favorite thing about working the polls, is making sure every single person that walked in those doors had access and knew how to vote.
Absolutely, yes. And, it's a tremendous way to serve your community and to learn about the election process. There's a lot of misinformation out there about elections. So if you have doubts, if you've questioned the outcome of elections, the election results, come be part of the process. Like you said, make it better, learn about it yourself. We are constantly looking at ways to improve the voting experience. And we get the best feedback from our poll workers, after they work on election day. So, your voice really matters. Your voice matters when you're casting that ballot, and your voice matters when you're the one administering the election.
And you talk about all of these myths. I think, of course, I've talked in other programs. Check your sources. Come on, we're grown-ups. We should know this. Check your sources when you get information. And your great uncle Jeremiah in Idaho is not a source for this kind of topic. But the Hamilton County Board of Elections makes it really easy to get good sources for the information. And we've talked about your website. Your website is very easy to navigate. Things pop right up when you get there and says, here's what you need to know. Here's where you need to click. I love that. And you have a Facebook page. Yes,
we do. We're on 3 different social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, pushing out the same information on all 3 of those platforms.
I have seen great posts that cover myths that you've heard and things that people ask you. So if you're looking for some posts to share about how election works in your own county, because it's going to be different in other states, it's going to be different, even different counties may have some different policies or things like that. Go to the Facebook page for your own county and share those posts, because that way all of your friends will have the same information. And I love that. I'd love to just cover all of the myths, but that would take another whole program in itself. So I'll just say there's a whole section on their website with all of those myths. So go click there and you can read them all and be the smartest one in your friend group to know the answer to all of those myths.
Absolutely. Follow us on Facebook. We'll be pushing out those Mythbusters throughout the election cycle.
Excellent. And I know we always want to be the smartest person in our friend group, right?
Absolutely.
That person at the party, important. Since early voting has started for this primary, let's talk about where people can vote.
Yes. Well, they can vote early in person at our Board of Elections. Next week, we will be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. But the following week, the week before Election Day, we have extended hours. So 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturday, April 30th, we're open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sunday, May 1st, we're open from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then early voting ends Monday at 2 p.m. Early in-person voting.
And I love that because some folks know they have a conflict and they can't go on May 3rd, but aren't comfortable with mailing it. Mm-hmm. And you can go in person to the Board of Elections during those hours and cast it just like you would on May 3rd in person.
Absolutely.
Now, if it's May 3rd and you're going to vote, don't go down to the Board of Elections. Go to your precinct. Have some of those changed, or?
There's a handful of polling places that we had to change. We do not like to change polling locations, right? We know people become very accustomed to where they go to vote. So we only change them if we have to. If perhaps there's construction, going on at the polling place, or maybe it was a privately owned facility that just no longer wish to be a polling place. So we've had a few change. When polling places do change, we send a notice to the voter through the mail, letting them know that. Voters can also, again, go onto our website, click Find My Polling Location, and actually a map and direct driving directions will pop up as well. So we try not to change polling places. But yes, on May 3rd, early voting is over at that point. It's Election Day voting, which means voters need to go to their polling place, their assigned polling place, and cast their ballot.
And that's really important. You're not just trying to make them go to another spot. It's because the ballots at that spot are the things that relate to their neighborhood.
That's correct.
And so it's really important to go to that right spot. I cannot say enough times to go to the website, type in your address, because I just get so ready to vote there. I find out exactly where my precinct is. I can click on a little button that says, show me a sample ballot, and I can find exactly what I'm voting for. And then I don't have any surprises when I get there. And then it's so fast because I don't have to read through all of the text of the issue because I can do that at home on my couch. which I love that too.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So it'll be very quick and easy when you go in person to vote.
Absolutely. What should they bring with them when they go to vote?
Yes, a form of ID is required in the state of Ohio, and there's many different acceptable forms. The most common is a state of Ohio driver's license or a state identification card. That's the most commonly used. But if a voter does not have either one of those forms of ID, they can provide a paycheck, a copy of a paycheck, a utility bill, another government document that, but all of those things do have to have the voter's name, address, and be dated within the last 12 months. And for a full listing of what acceptable forms of ID, they can go to our website or give us a call.
Excellent. And that's something that I know in your poll worker work trainings, there's a lot of education on how to find the right things. And I'm just going to mention that again because you could go to one of those poll worker trainings and be one of those poll workers to help it work. So I just highly recommend it. You just learn so much about doing it. And instead of just reading posts about how to make election better, you feel like you're doing it.
Right, absolutely. And I do want to mention that poll workers are compensated for their pay, for their work. They do have to attend a training class at the Board of Elections. We offer those training classes mornings, afternoons, evenings, and on Saturdays, so it'll fit anyone's schedule. So they attend a training class, and then on Monday night, as you know, the night before Election Day, they go to their assigned polling place, meet their co-workers, and set up the polling place for Election Day. And then they work on Election Day from 5:30 a.m. to usually about 8:30 p.m. So we know it's a long day. They are compensated. I know it's not a whole lot, but they are compensated for their pay. And it's really easy to apply. Again, on our website, click the poll worker button, apply now.
Great. That's fantastic. And I know that we're talking about adults, but 17-year-olds can do this. I cannot think of a better way to learn the process and be trained. And also talk to your civics teacher, maybe get some credit. I can't speak for your civics teacher, but definitely talk to your civics teacher.
Absolutely. We have a program we call Youth at the Booth Challenge, and we actually challenge all the high schools in Hamilton County to recruit high school seniors, 17 or 18, to come and work the polls on Election Day. And it's really been a tremendous success. We first implemented the challenge back in 2016. It's when we implemented electronic poll books, which are basically iPads or tablets that take the place of those paper signature poll books that poll workers used to use to check the voter in. And some of our poll workers struggled a little bit at that time with the technology, and we just thought, well, who knows? Today's technology is more comfortable with it than teenagers. So it's been a really successful program. Their adult counterparts love having them at the polling place. And, our main goal is that it sparks an interest in civic engagement at a young age.
I love that. They're just about to turn 18 and be able to really be actively part of this process. And if they'll be 18 before November, that means they got to be part of the primary that's picking what they're going to be voting for at their very first time in November.
Yes. And 17-year-olds, if they will be 18 by the election date in November, they can actually vote in the primary.
Because, and I just want to come back to what is a primary? You're not really voting for governor. You're voting for who on your team will be on the ballot for governor. So, hey, just because you're 17 doesn't mean you don't want to pick who's going to be on your team when you're 18 in November. So
exactly.
Love that. The analogy I usually use when someone's not really getting, well, I don't understand, are we voting for the person or are we just putting them forward, is I'm from Boston. So there's a Red Sox-Yankees thing. And I can tell you, I absolutely do not want Yankees fans picking players for my team. That would be a terrible idea. And so that is why only Red Sox people should pick Red Sox players, kind of things like that. So
I love that analogy. That's a great analogy. I love it.
Now, if you're a Yankees fan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's all I can say about that. But you should still go vote because that's how you can pick who's going to be on your team.
Yes, I love that.
Well, I want to thank you so much. I feel like we have covered an awful lot in one short, a little chat here. I really want to just remind people, again, go to the website. Everything you're possibly wondering that we didn't cover or we covered too quickly, it's on the website. But also, you said there's a phone number people can call if they have questions.
Absolutely. Give us a call at 513-632-7000. We will be happy to answer any of your questions regarding registering to vote, voting by mail, early voting, voting on election day, even what's going on with the redistricting process. So we have a great bipartisan team that works there, and we're happy to talk all things voting.
It's so good to know that there's a helpline from the people that are actually connected to the answers.
Yes.
So I really appreciate also that the time you took to come to our studio today to make sure that we could share this information. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching County Fair on Waycross Community Media. That means you want to be informed before you cast your vote. Remember, Election Day for this primary is May 3rd, and you can get all the information you need at the County Board of Elections website.